Welcome into the Startup Guys. I am Zach Walker, joined by Chris Ciccone. We are going to talk about a very important topic today. If you've ever been a founding sales hire or ever known one, 92% chance they didn't make it through 1 year. There's a lot of reasons why companies go out, hire this founding sales hire, and within a year they don't have him. They're frustrated. They didn't sell anything. It's a waste of money. It's a waste of time. And there are ways to do it better, do it smarter, and make sure that you give your organization the best chance of success. Chris, you've been a founding sales hire. Let's talk through this.
I'm so excited because this is just going to essentially be an impromptu therapy session for all of the things that I went through being a first time or a first sales hire, because there are so many things that go into it, right? And you get brought on, and first of all, you're expected to make magic, right? It's just like we hired a salesperson, so they're going to sell things. It's just like boom.
Magic
It
bullet.
doesn't matter if, right? It doesn't matter if we have product market fit. It doesn't matter if we have a product at all. Maybe it's vaporware. Maybe it exists. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe we know who we're targeting. Maybe we don't. Doesn't matter. Go sell it and figure out all those things at the same time. And I think that's the biggest challenge for the average first sales hire is, if you have experienced it before, you know how challenging it can be. And if you haven't, you are in for a world of hurt, because not only do you need to actually sell and close money, because money is what's going to give these companies runway, it is that you need to figure out, do you have product market fit or not? How do you build out the messaging? Who are you going to reach out to? What's your ICP? Who's the persona? What tech stack are you using? Oh, by the way, you need to document that so we can scale it later when we hire more people. But if you don't actually do all of that and close business, then we're going to end up shutting down in a year anyway. So good luck with all that.
That's so perfect. I think, and so for context, for those of you that don't know, we both work for a company called Unicorn, and so we work with founders that are in this process every single day. We've talked to thousands of them over this year, and just seeing the horror stories, it really was in a lot of part the reason we started the business was Chris was a founding sales hire 4 times, built multiple teams. I was one of his founding sales hires to build one of his verticals. Like it's something that is a challenge. And that statistic I mentioned earlier is absolutely factual, right? 92% of the time, a founding sales hire doesn't make it 1 year. The large majority of those happen in the first 90 days. And so I want to really dive into that and address why that is, right? So, Chris, there's a few reasons why. First of all, companies come into this and they're either underfunded or under revenued. Either way, they don't have enough money to get what they need because they don't align. Like what they need, what they think they need, and what they actually need are 3 very different things. And so the first reason that I think they fail frequently, you have to dip down or hire down because you can't afford the person that you really need to do the job. That's number 1. Number 2, the job they actually are hired for is not the job they end up doing, right? And number 3, like, companies just aren't ready when they think they are. And what they need is about 5 different skill sets wrapped into one. And that one person, that unicorn, either doesn't exist or costs so much money that there's no chance you can afford them because they've probably already started their own business and they're very successful. Because people with that skill set, they don't work for companies for long. Because if you can cover all those bases, you're a founder. You just don't know it yet. And so, I mean, of those pieces, from your experience, like what was it about your hiring in and your first 90 days on the job, of those pieces that we've talked about, like, did you feel?
You know, I think for me, the advantage that I had was much like what you were mentioning when Chris Ray hired you to kind of start a new vertical. That was the advantage I had. I was the first sales hire in a new vertical for a company that was already well established and doing quite well. So I had a lot more resources at my disposal that than the average, startup first time hire would have. So I was able to ask a lot of questions, have, some time with my peers to kind of figure out how I was going to iron out this new division, and this new vertical that we were breaking down. So that was really helpful. And then I learned very quickly, going from that type of environment where I had that support to, hey, you're the seventh hire at this startup, go sell. Where you go, well, wait a second, I can't go to any of my peers because I'm the only salesperson. The founder has done some founder-led sales, not a salesperson though. So you are very much on an island. And so you end up defaulting back to what you're good at. And so for me, it was a lot of like top of funnel pipeline generation. Great. I'm going to go, messaging is crisp, outbound is great. We're going to book some meetings. And then we would get them to discovery,
Mm.
and we didn't know what we needed to ask them to be able to provide value in the demo. And then the demo would be showing the entire platform, hoping that somebody would go ahead and just find something interesting in there. Not to mention that I was doing the demos for the most part because we didn't have sales engineers or anything. So it's like, cool, Chris, you can do a demo. Go, have fun. Good luck. Oh, and after doing all of this and like, hey, somehow it managed to go okay. Great. We need to hire more salespeople to scale this now. You've got all that documented, right? I didn't.
I don't know what that thumbs up was that just happened there, but did you see that?
I did. I think the Mac likes my thumbs up and wants to encourage me in my little therapy session
Well, there
here.
you go. Hey, thumbs up to you, buddy. But no, you're exactly right. I mean, ultimately, um, let's take a little bit of a different spin on this, and let's talk through like advice we would give to founder-led sellers. I've got um, a couple things I would say. Right, like your emotional investment will be high. Keep your objectivity high. Right, like as a founding led or as a founding seller, you get sucked into the vortex of, and that's what we all love about working with startups. High emotional investment, like rocking atmosphere, constant movement. Like we probably came to a startup because we wanted those things. All great. They help you sell. Motion creates emotion, all the stuff, right? However, idealism and objectivity don't exist in the same place in a lot of times. And as a founding seller, you have to stay objective about what's happening, because if you don't, you're never going to be able to push past emotion and to repeatable, scalable process, right? Like objectivity is what's going to create that. So that would be the first thing I would say. The second thing that I would say is make sure that you have some kind of process, right? First of all, a checklist when you get there. Is there a deck? What resources do I have? What collateral is there? What if those check marks aren't coming back positive, like affirmative, yes, I've got those things, then in the interview process, when I'm asking these questions, I'm probably going to push it. You're going to have to pay me a whole lot more. One, there's going to be have to be a whole lot more equity. Two, or three, you're going to have to give me some kind of commitment or timeline to when I can hire to help me with these resources. Because ultimately, you just end up stuck on this island where you're in an impossible situation, the pressure of the entire company on your back, unfairly, by the way. You didn't found this company, and here you are in a space where you're banging your head against the wall, hoping that you hit your number this quarter and don't lose your job, which is wild.
I think you actually brought up a really good point, because my piece of advice was going to be, have a crystal clear set of expectations, both for yourself as well as with the founders, whoever's hiring you, whatever the case may be. But I think that once you're in the role and you sit down on day one and you try and set those out, like, I think that's too late. I
You're
think you
right.
nailed it when you said in the interview, you need to set expectations for what is going to happen. Are we expecting to just crush our revenue goal and just drive revenue? That's great. That's good to know. But then, do we have all the resources necessary to do that? Do we have product market fit? Do we know who the ICP is and the persona is? Like, do we have all that set out? Because without those details, you're going to show up in day one and like you're going to be disappointed. And then the founders will probably be disappointed, and then you won't last a year because you lose your mind, or they do. So like that's the situation where you need to come out and just have really crystal clear expectations for what is going to happen for the first, let's start with 30, 60, 90. But I would go as far as like in the first year, what are we trying to do here? Are we just trying to uh, confirm that like this is a product that we can go to market with? Is it we need a revenue number because we want to raise? Is it like we
Hmm.
just need feedback and we want people, users on the platform? Because that can be an objective as well. So what are we trying to do? And then how can I help? Because I think that that also helps them understand who they need to hire. Because I think the other reason people don't last is, hey, I got a bunch of money. I'm gonna go hire a former VP of sales. Yeah, cool. They're not gonna cold call. Like they
Yeah.
don't want to do that. I don't blame them.
Yeah.
But they're not going to be driving the revenue, but the process is going to be real crisp. That's great. Or you go the other way and, hey, I've got no money. I'm going to go bring in somebody who's scrappy and resourceful. They're going to make the calls. They're going to be, boots on the ground, and that's great. But when you're expecting a scalable, repeatable process, you might not be there. So that's why for me, like that interview process is so critical, because while it might not be your company and you may not have founded it, you sure as heck have to believe in it, because otherwise you're not going to be willing to put in the time and effort that's going to be required to have you and the company be successful.
I think another, I think another really important piece of being a founding led seller is knowing when to step back a bit, right? Like knowing when to like, okay, look, if you're going to take this role, you got to be a pusher. You've got to be a move fast, break stuff kind of person. Like if you're just to sit back and let it come to me in due time, right? Like if that's the type of seller you are, you're not going to work for sure. You're likely not going to get through the process. You're definitely not going to stay there for long. But like knowing when to just, hey, I've pushed too far. I need to take a step. I know the founder is so emotionally invested in this. He respects me. He likes me. I like him. We're friends. We hunt to get whatever. That's all great and good. But like, you have to know when to give people time, step back, and stop that piece, because you are pushing so hard. And look, there is a balance between, are the founders supporting you well? Are they giving you the tools and resources? If you're not getting that type of stuff, then certainly push all day long, because you have to have a foundation to be able to build, right? But beyond that, if you're getting, if you're getting all that and you're trying to push improvements or change, specifically change, you need to know when to take a step back, because a lot of times what happens in that founder and founding sales hire relationship, they're create tremendous tension gets created when the sellers over here and the founders over here, and you know how that works. So knowing when to take a breath and be like, you know what, I've pushed this envelope as far as I need to push it, is a key skill.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly right. You're not only a salesperson externally, but you're also a
Mm,
salesperson internally, right? Like you said, you have to be able to push certain agenda pieces, things that you think will be critical in being able to close revenue and drive business. But yeah, you have to know how to pick and choose your battles, because you only have so much political capital when you're coming in from the outside and you're dealing with a founder, right? This isn't an organization where you're just going to your director, your VP. You are going to somebody who's, this is their baby, and they're going to be extra protective of it. So you have to pick and choose your battles. You have to be able to sell internally. And the other thing that I've learned over time, especially when you're dealing with a founder who's maybe more on the technical side, is you have to bring data to back it up.
yeah,
And that was
good point.
something for me was, I don't want to say really easy, but like my background is actually in sciences. I never took a business course in my life. I don't really know the I still haven't really taken a proper business course, I don't think, but I studied kinesiology, health sciences, all that good stuff. So for me, every time I did any type of sales strategy or tried something new, it was very much like a science experiment. Let me collect the data. What's our sample size look like? What's our result look like? Did we A, B, C, D, E test? What are the different variables that we put into place, so that I could come back and say, all right, the feedback seems to be that X, Y, Z is good, A, B, C is bad. This is who said that. This is the personas they were. This is the industries those companies are in. Here's the data that I think would improve our process. And it's not just a hunch, it's not just a feeling. You've got to have those sometimes too. But I'm able to provide data that backs up me calling their baby ugly.
Yeah, it's yeah, and a picture won't work. Just for the record. Sorry, dad joke. One of the other things you said that really a good kind of last point for this particular video here is that like selling internally, right? Selling internally is it's such an important skill set. I think for someone who is in a founding seller seat, being able to align customer feedback and the vision of the organization, right? Like you are the first boots on the ground other than the founder in that founder led motion, if that's how it began or whatever the early stage revenue came from. But like now you're the one out there leading this first outbound effort or this first aggregation of an ICP with some level of desire to want to sell product to the market, and you're going to hear all kinds of stuff. I know for us at Unicorn, what we thought we were going to be and what we became were two very different things. The one thing that we put on our website that we thought was we literally just needed a third pillar. Like we were just like, we need a third thing to talk about. And it literally became the only thing we did. And we were like, what? And we pivoted quickly because that's what the market was demanding. As a founding seller, you have to take that feedback about this baby to its mom and dad and say, hey, this is what the people are saying. It's one thing when you tell them that you think their baby's not cute. It's a whole nother thing when you say, I took your baby to the mall and you should have seen the faces on all the people that walked by the stroller. It was ugly, right? Like that's a whole nother level of emotion that you're unlocking. And so much about the founding journey is emotional. I don't care how many cold plunges you do at 4 a.m. and how well you make your bed and how many marathons you run. Like you are emotional as a founder because you've put everything into this. In a lot of ways, you burn the boats. Like there is no plan B. There is no other option. I either pay my bills or I don't. I either get revenue, raise money, and have a company, or I don't. And so it's just that ability to bring customer feedback into the business and align the vision of the business based on that is one of the hardest parts.
And I think like my last point I want to leave on this is that's why it's so critical for a founder to start with founder led sales before they bring on an early stage sales hire. Or if they're really uncomfortable doing it, then they probably have to do it hand in hand with that early stage hire. Because to your point, Zach, if you just go send a salesperson out there who does not have the same buy into the product, the same passion for it that you have, and they're coming back to you with this feedback and you don't understand it because you've never been out there yourself, like there's going to be a disconnect there. So if I am being hired early on, I want to know what kind of founder led sales motion has existed.
Yeah.
And if there isn't much of one, I've got some red flags going on if that founder isn't open to having me kind of take them by the hand and walk them through a few sales cycles to understand what that process truly looks like, because otherwise there's no way those expectations I mentioned before ever really line up.
Well, and there's plenty of other content in this video. We certainly can't unpack it all in the 15 or so minutes, but like there's interviewing for a founding sales role and how to do that, right? Like we could save your life with the information that we have locked inside of here. And then the other one that you mentioned earlier was just the LinkedIn side of it all and leveraging the social selling piece. But there's so much more content that we can pull from this. I will say that it is what you just said is the reason Copilot was created, right? With Unicorn, right? Like, yes, the founder-led selling motion needs to happen because the founder they need to learn. They need to understand. Doesn't mean you have to do it on your own. I think that's where people get hung is like, yes, you need to sell it, but like if you're a technical founder, you need to bring somebody in who can help you understand how you could be most efficient, because most important is the time and money that you're losing by just getting out there and throwing water into the wind, right? Like it just doesn't make sense. And so you're absolutely right. But like go find that help. Go find a Copilot program like what we've got. And there's plenty of great companies that do great consulting and great stuff. Just go find something you can afford. I know what we cost. We cost $3,500 a month for Copilot. Like it's a very reasonable number. It's something you can do with very little revenue, and you can bring us alongside and we can build the 5 pillars with you, show you how to do it, walk along, build the list with you, build the messaging with you. And the whole time you're getting a first-class education on how you're going to build your sales team in the future while working with a company like Unicorn to do that. So yeah, absolutely need to go out and do that before you hire, but like, you don't have to do it alone. So shameless plug there. Guys, look, we love you. We thank you for being here. Anything that you want to see, want to hear, want us to talk about, drop it in the comments. Make sure you like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.